Now that we have our sales amount calculation, we're ready to continue adding additional calculations. This time we want to be able to compare the change in sales from one time period to another. So in other words, if I'm looking at 2006 sales, I want to know the difference between 2006 and 2005. Or if I'm looking at 2007 sales, how does that change from 2006 sales? So let's go back to the Calculations tab, and we're going to add a new calculation, and we'll call this Previous Sales. Now we already know how to reference the sales amount. We would just simply drag and drop sales amount in there. That would give us the same value that we currently have for the sales amount calculated measure. But we want to compare the current value for sales amount to the value for sales amount one time period earlier. So if we're looking at year members, we want to go back 1 year. Or if we're looking at quarter members, we want to go back 1 quarter. And if we're looking at months, we'd go back 1 month. We can do that by using a function. Here on the Functions tab, we have all kinds of functions, and we can see all of them listed in the All folder. Now it's a little confusing when we open the All folder and we see nothing listed there, but if you scroll down, you'll see the various functions listed. And they're organized by the types of things that they do. So if we want a set, we'd go to the set functions. If we want to perform statistical analysis, we open the statistical folder. Or for navigation purposes, which is what we want to do here, is to navigate from one time period to another, we can use the functions that are available here. So I'm going to drag and drop Prev member into the expression box, and you can see that it has a token here that's waiting for me to supply a member name. I'm going to put this on a separate row in the expression box just to be able to work with this more easily. So what we need here is a particular member. Going back to the metadata pane, I'm interested in comparing one time period to another using the calendar hierarchy. So what I can do is replace member with the calendar hierarchy reference, and then the specific member that I want it to use would be the current member, which also is a function that would appear like so. So we have the dimension order date dot calendar, which is the hierarchy we're using, dot, and then the member name. So we can either reference a member name explicitly or use the current member function, which would look on the current row or the current column or the current filter to determine which member is currently being used for the order date calendar hierarchy. And then based on whatever that current member is, the prev member function will go back 1 member. So if I'm at the year level, we'll go back 1 year. If I'm at the quarter level, go back a quarter, and so on. Now, when we have a current member function and a prev member function like this, we can actually omit the current member function. It's just implied when we use the prev member function. Now, how does this relate to sales amount? Well, what we need to do is to create something called a tuple. And a tuple is just a coordinate. So in this case, what the tuple will do is tell Analysis Services not to retrieve the sales amount for the current member, but to retrieve the sales amount for the previous member. So it's a coordinate that we place within 2 parentheses, and then we have each member of the tuple represents a different member from a different dimension and hierarchy. And then collectively, they define where in the cube we can find information. So whereas measured sales amount would get the value from the cube for a current member, by creating a tuple, we can override that behavior and say, go back 1 member and retrieve the sales amount for that member. Again, we need to specify a format string, and that would be our previous sales amount. Now, if we want to continue building on this concept, we can have a separate calculation that then subtracts previous sales amount from sales amount so that we can compute growth. So let's add in one more calculated member, and we'll call this sales growth. And here we can drag and drop sales amount, but we don't have the previous sales amount available to us yet because we haven't deployed the project. So in that case, we can just simply type in the expression directly. And there's our expression. So we've created one calculated member, and then we've referenced that calculated member in yet another.